Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Never Stop Healing podcast. I'm your host, Regan Archibald, and so happy to have you here today with us. And today is going to be a really exciting episode of Never Stop Healing because I've got Justin Breen on with me. And Justin's the founder and CEO of a global PR firm, Bree Epic, and the exclusive connectivity platform, Bree Epic Network. And his newest book, which is a Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestseller, Epic Life, features a foreword from Peter Diamandis. It's also been a #1 overall book sales on Amazon Kindle. So congratulations on that, Justin.
Thank you.
And I'm a big fan of Peter. He does some amazing work. I know Chris Voss wrote the foreword to your last book as well, which I'm also a big fan of Chris Voss, but really appreciate being on today. But Justin, tell us a little bit about your background. You've got an interesting and I want to talk about your family life just to start off with, kind of how you were raised, what your mother went through. Your father was in World War II. I mean, I think that'd be kind of an interesting way for people to get to know you a little more personally before we jump into some of the work you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that, and I was really excited to be on this show because you're a true visionary, 9 quick start, changing the world visionary, and then the purpose of my life is to be a connecting superhero for every visionary, abundance, investment mindset entrepreneur and share their stories with the world. So that's just the purpose of my life, is to do stuff like this. And it starts because I was just born with a story. Like I was just like, I think you're either born someone like us or you're not. I strongly feel that. But so thanks for mentioning my dad and my mom. I mean, my dad was 61 when I was born. He'd be 106 if he was alive now. And then my mom was 27. And so my dad was born in 1916, came from nothing. He was a World War II and Korea War hero, and he was shot down multiple times in combat, many times without a parachute. Became an attorney in the Nuremberg trials, president of an insurance company, and he died when I was 13. And there's a couple things from that. One, first chapter of my book, of the new book. We're very grateful that Peter wrote the foreword, but the chapter 1 is for something my dad said: every day the cream rises to the top. So he, every day that, like, so you get in a plane without a parachute or you don't. So the cream rises. So I don't understand excuses. I just doesn't make any sense. But, and then, after he died, I found a diary of his battle, of him fighting in the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest. That was a very deadly battle towards the end of World War II, German-Belgium border. And every entry in that diary it just gets more horrific and more horrific and more horrific. If you want me to later, I can share some of those, or at least one. But so anytime a little bit of a hint of an excuse comes popping into my head, I'm like, oh, there's that diary. No excuse. So that's my dad. I would say most sons have really good relationships with their dad. Mine obviously different. And then our sons are 9 and 8. And they're both 9 quick starts, by the way. I've already colded them. So that's why I would never let entrepreneur life destroy my family life. I know what it's like not to have a dad around. So that's my dad. And then when he was in his late 50s, a drunk driver hit him on the highway, head-on collision. Drunk driver killed. Dad broke every bone in his body but survived. And then my mom was his nurse. So that's how they met. That's a pretty good story, right? So, and then my mom, she was 27 when I was born. She's still alive. She was born in 1949. And so most of my days talking to people like us, I still haven't met one person that has more hustle than her ever. I've never met. So if I meet someone who has more hustle than her, most of my days talking to the world's top entrepreneurs who have endless hustle, like she's the ultimate. So I'm the product of that. And then, that accident and my dad being shot down so many times in combat, many times with no parachute. It's like, here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that motto, no excuses. And I think that's one of the easiest ways that we kind of become mediocre and don't live our fullest lives is when we
100%.
we find a way to justify a behavior or justify a reason why we can't do something. And then what we're doing is we're selling ourselves short and and really just not maximizing the full potential that humans have. And so you're someone who's a genius at making connections for people. And one of your partners, your integrator, Mark, um, uh, is somebody who you've met. You call him your Babs, and so
Yes, yes.
and so just maybe you could explain, like, how did you actually attract how did you actually get Mark, and how did you just create such a collaboration personally? Because I think before you can create collaborations for other people, you've got to prove that you can do it yourself. And so
100%. Yeah, you're
um
just a litmus test for you are the litmus test for everyone, the people that you partner with. So my firm's partner with visionaries who live in abundance and who look at things as investments, not costs. I'm a visionary who lives in abundance and who looks at things as
right.
investments, not costs. So if you're and then you don't make excuses. So and then I was looking at the title of here's your book right here. So thanks for sending it. Never
Yeah.
Stop Healing: The Unknown Shortcuts with Peptides for an Extraordinary Life. Okay, that's pretty good. So here's the answer. Here's the shortcut. One of the chapters in my new book is the process is the shortcut. So
Mhm.
here's unknown shortcuts. Okay, so people that don't make excuses, they'll just thank you, let's go. You
Right.
just provided the answer. So you litmus tested yourself for the people that you serve. And then so like people that make excuses, one, I don't understand that. Two, that they're not part of, they're not. So I didn't answer any of your question there, or maybe I did, but like so you and I are both in strategic coach.
Yep.
I've met in person. In person, I've met my partner, who's also in strategic coach. His name is Mark Fujiwara. For those that understand or know what Colby is, he's a 1596 Colby, a one fact finder. I'm an 8, so he's a 1596 full visionary integrator, backstage, but full visionary. Okay,
Yeah.
so the backstory for this is I'm also in Abundance 360. That's the group Peter Diamandis leads. And again, he wrote the forward for my book. So during the 2021 A360, which was mostly all virtual, I was talking on a side chat to Dan Sullivan, who's the co-founder of Strategic Coach. And the new company is like, it's essentially a SaaS platform. It's LinkedIn without the BS. It's an invite only connectivity platform. I don't know how to do that. I mean, I would electrocute myself doing that. And so I was talking to Dan. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to find my Babs. He found, Babs Smith is his wife and fellow co-founder of Coach. Without Babs, bad situation for Dan, and there is no strategic coach. So I'm
Right.
like, so he's like, well, he's like, the trick is have your Babs find you. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Okay, I can do that. So I did a strategic coach has a thing called an impact filter. So I filled that out. It's like, here's what has to happen for this person to be a good fit. And then I started selectively sending it out to some folks that I knew and trusted. And then one of them was Mark Fujiwara, who we had met virtually in Strategic Coach. And he's like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So we created a SaaS platform, LinkedIn without the BS. And Mark, again, is a visionary integrator, and my Colby 8671, I'm an integrating visionary. So that's very rare. Most visionaries are like you, where they have a harder time integrating. They need lots of people to integrate for them. Because of my Colby, I can do both. And because of Mark's Colby, he can do both as well.
Yeah, that's a fascinating partnership. Yeah, we've got, everyone knows Cade on this. Cade's just an amazing integrator. So I can
What's Cade's Colby? What is Cade's Colby?
Cade's Colby is very similar to mine. Cade's is a 4385.
Wow.
4385. Yeah.
I've never heard of that one before. That's amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's got a lot of horsepower to get things complete, to run operations, to
Wow.
see a plan through. So it's been an awesome partnership.
And he likes being backstage, but he's still a visionary.
Yeah, he can be backstage, but he can also jump on the front stage, and he's,
Fascinating.
yeah. Yeah, so it's an interesting world, and I look at what you do, and one of the things you told me at the onset when we were chatting before the show started is, I said, what's the big message that would really move the needle for my audience? What's something that would be powerful for them? And maybe we can jump into that a little bit, because I think it's important. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who run their own businesses, and
Yeah.
that's one of the primary audiences that we serve. And so,
Yeah.
and you said, look, your whole meaning in the companies that you build is that you can have an entrepreneurial lifestyle and still have a great family life, and still have happiness, and still have some type of harmony without, because I think Dan Sullivan, he's been a great mentor to both of us, and he's been on the show every year. I
Yeah.
interview him on his birthdays, because
Good
I'm
idea.
I'm one of his who's to get him to 156. So we're
Right.
always
He's halfway. He's halfway. Actually, he's more than halfway now.
he's now over it, but yeah,
Little
this year he
more.
turned 78, so halfway there. But one of the things that he talks about is when you have yourself for a boss, you have a horrible boss, because we are our own worst enemy. Like
Yeah.
we push ourselves harder than anybody. But
Yes.
what tell me what your organization can do for entrepreneurs who want to find that balance, and want to create better connectivity and collaboration, and have more enjoyment in their work.
So that's great background, and I'm guessing if and good question too. But I'm guessing if you weren't here now, you'd be up, in the mountains, Wasatch Mountains, with your 3 kids and your wife. That sounds like a good idea. So, and I think it does all start with health. And when I mean that, I mean mental, mind health, and physical health. And it's really interesting too, thinking of that. Always talk about mental health as something different than physical health, but your mind is part of your body. I mean, it's really, I always thought it should be more integrated. Your brain's part of your body. I do think it starts there. Okay, so that's just an aside on that. Maybe you've always felt the same thing, but
Always. Yep.
yeah, it's like mental health. Like, of course, it's part of your body, but
Right.
people
Yeah.
think it's this separate organism. I'm like, no, not really. And so, as background, I was a journalist for 20 years.
Right.
And so you don't get into that for office space, employee count, revenue. Um, like, I never took an entrepreneur class in college. I don't even, I just never understood any of that stuff. So it was always about, purpose and connecting great people and sharing cool stories with the world. So there's been no change in since becoming an entrepreneur in that. I mean, it's always been the same purpose. So what I have found is that people like us, and when I say that, I mean like top entrepreneurs on the planet. So not business owners, not consultants, like true like global thinking entrepreneurs changing the world. What I found with people like us is we are the most damaged people, most damaged with the best coping skills. So, so I haven't met one person like us that has not overcome at least one of the following 4 things. Most are 2 or 3. And then it's also been very interesting. Higher up on the food chain, it's now become 3s, and then there's a lot of all 4s, a lot. So here are the 4 things. And this definitely has to do with health. So the 4 things are bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy, 2, depression, 3, the highest level of anxiety that you can imagine, and 4, likely and or possible traumatic experiences as a child or young adult. So most people, those are excuses. Entrepreneurs at the highest level, those are fuel. There's okay, figure it out.
Yeah.
So the caveat to that, or the dovetail to that, is that many times, certainly not always, but many times entrepreneurs use those coping skills to create massive company, massive whatever that is, and that's fine, but many times it's at the expense of having anything meaningful in their life, or torching their families, or never having a family. And I never understood that, because it's always, that's not why you get into journalism, for the most part. And
Yeah.
so I just wanted to spend time with my family. And so that's, and then live in the purpose of my life and spend time with my family. And that starts with having the right type of health.
And so I guess you kick it off, and it's like looking at the mind and the body. One of the things that fascinates me with Eastern medicine is every organ system has an emotion that it harbors. So if you think of your kidneys,
Super interesting.
in Chinese medicine, they say that's where fear comes from. Fear comes from the kidneys. And that, if you look at it from a physiological perspective, your adrenal glands secrete epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol, all those stress hormones that help you run from the tiger, fight or flight. And they knew that 2,500 years ago. But on the flip side of fear is wisdom. Because some fear is really good. Because if I wasn't afraid of stepping in front of a bus,
right,
the bus is going to win. But your dad, for example, he gets shot down without a parachute, and he didn't let fear allow him to freeze up. He said, well, I'm going to create some wisdom and figure out a way to survive this thing.
Yes.
And so that comes from the kidneys. You look at the liver, and that's where we harbor anger. But on the flip side of anger is benevolence, where we start saying, you know what, I think I could look at this a little differently. And that anger is something that can either eat us up, or we can do things completely different.
100%.
And so we could go on to every organ, like the lungs are grief, and the heart is joy and excitement, and the spleen, it relates to pensive.
Joy and excitement is heart. So one of the chapters in the new book is lead with your heart. So that's interesting.
Oh, there we go.
So this is how I learn in real time. Maybe this is how you learn in real time too, but and there's a big difference between overthinking and active thinking. So what you just said is like, okay, well, that makes sense now, because if heart is joy, you lead with heart. And then also I've learned, again, this is not always the case, but usually people like us marry stabilizing humans. Usually, not always. So I always ask people.
That is my wife. Yes, she's an 8-7.
Oh, keep going, please.
3-2. 8-7.
Damn it! 3-2. My wife's an 8-7-4-2. So close.
Oh, so close.
So, okay, so I see the pattern. Well, I mean, to me, it's not, because I see I know the answer. So I always ask people like us, is your spouse a school teacher or a nurse or a social worker, a scientist, like a pilot? And they're like, how did you know that? I go, well, imagine marrying yourself. It does happen. So many times, if that does happen, actually, some of the time, if that happens, you create something like strategic coach, because that's a 10 quick start marrying a 9 quick start. Right. Most of the time when that happens, complete dumpster fire, disaster, because there's no stability. Yep. And then so my wife is a pediatrician, 8-7-4-2. So she's taught me empathy, rules, lists. What is your wife trained in education or something like that? Or it's like what?
Yeah, so my wife is she does real estate, commercial real estate, but she's a Pilates teacher, so she teaches
great
more than anything. Yeah, so it's but man, talk about running a tight ship. Like, I have a tightly managed personal life.
I bet there's calendars all over your house.
Oh, there's sticky notes everywhere. I get in her car and I'm like, okay, there's like checklists for the day. I forget about the checklist. I check off the first one, and then it's wadded up, and I've already made a new checklist before I can finish the first one. So
a lot of checklists. So, and I mean this seriously, it's going to sound like a joke, but I'm being serious. So if you combined your wife and you, it would be me, because I have high quick start and high follow through and high fact find with zero building things with my hand. I mean, it's just a disaster. And then you're a 3 implementer.
Yeah.
So you could build something. Your wife's a 2. My wife she'll try to build something. She'll hate doing it. I will get in my car and leave the house to avoid building anything. I don't know how to hold the pencil right. It's a disaster. But you don't need to do that in entrepreneur world. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is fascinating. So one of the things that, you mentioned is if you want to have a healthy balance, where you have a great
Mm,
entrepreneurial life where you can actually fulfill a deeper sense of purpose and meaning, which I'd like to touch on a little bit too,
yes.
then it needs to start with mental health. And I think that is,
Yes.
having that mind body connection and understanding like, hey, maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe
What are the brain's emotions? What is the brain, the organ brain emotion?
so in Chinese medicine, they really looked at the brain. They call it the sea of marrow, and so it was
Wow.
actually an extension of
No
the
kidding.
kidneys. Because if you look at how a baby, when we're in the womb, a fetus, it's the brain and the kidneys that are connected,
So the
and
kidneys is fear. So the brain is the extension of the fear.
but the brain stem, but then the prefrontal cortex is where wisdom comes from and love.
Oh, interesting. So it's
So
fear and
so remember, wisdom is what overrides it. It's the animal part of the brain, the limbic system, that reptilian brain, the amygdala. That's what institutes that fear. But then it's our rational side of our thinking that says, you know what, this is nothing to be afraid of. I've been through situations that are much worse. You talked about entrepreneurs, going through bankruptcy, divorce. They've had traumatic childhood injuries. They've
right,
had depression, anxiety.
right.
I think, we can all check the box on all four of those. But
I'm three of the four. I haven't had to worry about bankruptcy.
yeah, I guess I'm two of the four. And so for all intents and purposes, maybe three, actually, if I look back on some of my experiences. But the interesting thing about that is, if you can use the wisdom in your kidneys and really harvest that, and then the
Fascinating.
liver is more about creating a plan. The image of the liver is a green bamboo, so it's got flexibility, but it grows in an upward path. So the liver gives you a sense of direction. It's like the general in the army. It executes on a plan and sticks to the pathway leading to straight. They call it just going to heaven, the green bamboo. So if you can keep your organs healthy, and this is where detoxification is such a critical piece, because people look at detoxification as simply a matter of, let's clean out the garbage in the body. Let's clean out
Mhm.
the glyphosate, let's clean out the plastics, the heavy metals, the infections that we're exposed to. I look at it more as a spiritual process of, you've got to let go of a belief system that's been holding you back for a long time.
100%.
And so, I think, a lot of people get stuck in those pathways where they have these concepts about who they are that are old. It's like, that was so yesterday. And in order to build a better future, you've got to do some cleansing along the way, and then you can grow
Yes.
a much healthier future, for you and your family. But what are some of the other concepts that you found that help people maintain that balance?
Balance is everything. Um, and my whole brain, maybe because of Colby or just how it works, is it turns everything into patterns. Everything. I don't know why it does that, but everything becomes a pattern. Or like people like us marry stabilizing humans. That's a pattern. People that make excuses, that's a pattern of someone who's not a visionary. Okay.
Yep.
And so um there's the two simplest, most effective patterns that I have learned that, and my strength finders are activate, maximize, achieve. Those are top three. So there's no overthinking. There's no not much ideation. There's execution. So the top two are right mindset creates right network, which creates right opportunities. So you work on your mindset, you attract the right network, and then that network creates right opportunities for you. So that's one. That's one. The second one, which is definitely a dovetail to that, is bigger checks lead to smaller rooms, but the people in those rooms are making bigger impacts. So
Yeah.
so I just write bigger checks to be in smaller and smaller rooms, like strategic coach, abundance 360. The people in
Yeah.
those rooms are making bigger impacts. That allows me, again, because you're a litmus test for the people you serve, right? So that allows me to spend biggest investment, right? Biggest check in the smallest room, which is my family, where I can make the most impact. So it's the same
Mm,
formula, but it starts with yourself, and then you just do it. You don't overthink it. You just execute. You activate, maximize, achieve that.
man, I love that. And one of our guests, hey Diane, can you just talk about the name of your book, Diane? He's actually got two amazing books, but
Thank you.
and I see you got a copy there, so maybe you could share it with us. Right behind you, your Epic Life.
Oh, Epic Life and Epic Business. Yeah. Epic Life is the one that just came out. And then Epic Business was released May of 2020, right in COVID. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, and let's talk a little bit about how you connect people, because that's one of the genius ideas that you came up with. And this is Mike Fujiwara, he's an incredible guy. I actually want to reconnect with him. It's been a long time since.
Oh yeah, I'll reconnect you right after.
You and I were in 10X, and so, but what does your network look like? I know it's invite only, but what's inside of it? It's kind of like a LinkedIn without all the garbage in there.
So again, thank you. So I'm just a simplifier who turns things into patterns. So the formula for creating a successful global company is very simple, surprisingly simple. Is you see a problem, create solution, problem solve, successful global company. So first company, launched it 5 years ago with zero business background, journalist for 20 years, created an entire business model based on how PR firms annoyed me for 20 years. So saw a problem, created solution, problem solve. Successful global company. And the new one, annoyed by platforms that let everyone in, because people at the highest level, they don't have time for that. So created a solution, problem solve, successful global company. And so if people want, to close an 8-9 figure deal, if they want a connection for a Hollywood script writer, if they want to have, 10 to 15 high net worth new clients, I mean, that's what it's for. And it's fun doing that because all it is technology for what my brain does naturally. It's just a platform for what I've been doing basically my whole life, which is my purpose. It had started just through, I guess, PR media, and then now this is for anything. And so again, we just partner with visionaries who live in abundance and who look at things as investments, not costs. So when you partner with those people, they introduce you to more people like that, and it just never stops growing.
Man. And then how does that tie into your book, Epic Life?
Yeah, so everything ties together when your brain turns everything into patterns. It's like an organ system. That's actually what it is. It's just an organism that keeps. I don't know which organ is which, but that's a good. I'll have to think about that. But so like Epic Life is how to build collaborative global companies while putting your loved ones first. So that's the rub. People are like, oh, wait a minute, you can build collaborative global companies and you don't have to torture family in the process. I'm like, no, you can actually start with your family, but
or torture all the people who are working with you on that.
Yeah, or torture. Yeah, the humans who just want to be, they just want to have a normal, safe life, which is great, by the way. Thank God there's more people like that. But
yep.
Yeah, right. And so like Mark and I have met 2 times in person. And we launched it earlier this year, but we started talking in 2021. So we've met 2 times in person. One was at the launch party we threw in Chicago. It's a really nice party we threw. That was the first time we'd ever met. It was at the launch party. And then the second time, my wife and I just went to visit Mark in San Francisco, Mark and his wife, Amy. We went there a couple of weeks ago. Other than that, we've never met in person. Maybe we'll meet once. Because there's no, and then he's a full backstage visionary. And then what's very interesting is, so he has a book coming out. And talk about collaboration. It's about how to build a multifamily family office. I know absolutely nothing about that. However, now I'm a co-author on that. And then the third co-author is Russ Allen Prince, who's the editor of Private Wealth magazine. In the family office space, Russ Allen Prince is he's #1 in the world.
Wow.
And yeah, so this is what happens with the right mindset attracts right network, which creates right opportunities. So that book's coming out soon. And then the book talks about how Brepic Network is the connectivity platform for people at that, at that level. And then also Russ is like, oh, when you have PR partners, introduce them to me. I'll do stories on them. I'm like, okay. So that's just all it is you just have the right mindset that creates these powerful connections, and then those connections create opportunities for you. And that's endlessly fun for me, because it just keeps going to a higher and higher level where you create bigger and bigger meaning for people.
Yeah, I love that. And let's talk a little bit about meaning. I think, if you look at life and you say, okay, well, anyone who's got a big vision for their future,
Yes, yes.
and a purpose, I look at purpose and intention is like your purpose drives your intention, and your intention is kind of the manifestation of your purpose, right?
Yes, yes.
And so if you look at meaning behind that, it's really challenging to continue on that have a deep level of purpose and intention if you're not getting meaning along the way. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you could share your insights on what's given you meaning over the years, and what kind of fuels the relationships that you're building, because I know it's beyond it. The work you're doing goes far beyond monetary compensation. That's not even a thought of yours. It's far deeper than that. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit, if you're open to sharing.
It's a good question. And my favorite book, and there's really not a close second, it's Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. I'm
Oh
guessing
yeah.
you've read that. If you haven't,
Nothing short of about 100 times. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So if there are people on this planet that have not read that book, I'm guessing most of this audience has.
Oh yeah, I'm
But
sure.
if you haven't read that, like, that's the ultimate.
Yep.
And second favorite book is my dad's diary.
Mm.
I'm a pretty good writer. That diary is one of the best things ever. There's some excerpts from it in the book that just came out, but and then one of them, Christmas Day 1944, Christmas Day 1944 was when he was fighting in the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest. He was on the ground and he was watching a Nazi plane fight three American planes. The Nazi plane shot down the first two American planes, and the third American plane shot the Nazi plane down, and the Nazi pilot jumped out of the plane and his parachute didn't open. So this is graphic. And my dad watched the guy's body just explode onto the
Wow.
ground. Yeah, right. So it's Christmas Day.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. So they went to the body and they looked at the pilot's paperwork, because my dad's friend could read German or speak German. So the pilot was on his first mission ever, and he was a teenager, 19. So
Wow.
okay, so that was a really graphic one, but that was pretty much every entry in that diary. So the
Man.
really good one is when he wrote about how the plane was shot, and then he looked down to his, looked for a parachute, no parachutes. So they landed the plane in this miracle field. So I'm like, that's why the higher powers, put us here. I strongly believe that. I mean, all the things that had to happen, but
Yeah.
like that's where true meaning is created, by not making an excuse and then executing. And then that's the only way you can actually learn anything, is by doing something. So not overthinking it. Active thinking is fine, but overthinking to the point where you don't do anything, I just can't understand that.
Yeah.
And so Viktor Frankl, my dad, that's what it is. You just don't make excuses.
Man, I think that's so important. And my grandfather was in World War II. He was
Right.
about your dad's age. And my grandfather, I believe, was born in 1925.
Yeah. So I should be older than you're older than your parents, much older.
Yeah,
I
but
should be older than Dan, actually, than Dan Sullivan. I should be in early 80s. Yeah.
right, but your dad was 61 when you were born. So
Yeah, he was born in 1916. So if you think about
okay.
when people had kids, then I should have been born like 1940, 1942. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, but my grandfather writes, his journal was really impactful for me too, because he
Mhm.
was in Japan and he was a medic.
Wow.
And so he was taking care of a lot of the wounded soldiers, and
Mm.
And then he was there right after the atomic bombs were dropped, and
Wow, he had to see some. Oh my God.
he just said the devastation was
Oh,
heartbreaking to see the kids without parents, hungry,
just
looking
figured.
for garbages like everywhere. I mean, it was just he didn't talk about it until right before he passed away.
Probably never talked about it. Yeah. So those are, thank you for mentioning that. I was just getting a shot the other day at a pharmacy, and there was a guy there sitting there with a oh, he had a World War II veteran hat on. And when I see someone like that, I immediately start talking to them because there's not that many left, and then it makes me think of my dad. So so this is fascinating, right? So this guy, his name's Robert. He's 95. So most people don't get these conversations sitting in line for a shot, but journalists. So he's 95. He was on the Pacific Front. He was a Navy seaman, replacing like shells in the artillery.
Yep.
And so he was telling me, and then I was talking to his grandson because his grandson worked there. That's why he was there getting a shot also. And so he's been a practicing attorney for 70 years. He's still practicing. Practicing. And he said it all started because of he enlisted in the Pacific when he was 17. They let him in. And and so he still has a lot of the stuff from there. I'm going to go visit him in his office because he's still working. And then he used that experience to create a life for himself, this incredible life where he's still a practicing attorney and I think he has 12 grandkids. And the appreciation I have for those people, I can't even, because no excuses. People like your grandpa, what he saw. And it's like people nowadays, I just can't, like, they have all these comforts and all these amazing things, and there's never been more excuses. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? It's like almost like an immigrant's mentality. I have a very strong immigrant's mentality where you just like do whatever it takes. In a good way to, you definitely do as well. You definitely do.
Well, yeah, I think growing up on a farm, you've got to have that. I think today's world, we get instant gratification from like our posts that we plug into social media, and we get the instant like, and that's a dopamine hit.
100%. Have you read Dopamine Nation?
I've not read it.
Tremendous book.
I know of it though. Yeah, I've read like blogs on it. So I've read the cliff notes.
That's smart. Yeah. That's smart. That's a good one though.
Oh, it's so powerful because we are, and the systems are designed to keep us addicted. And I look at my kids, and
how old are your kids?
I've got two 16-year-old sons. One's a stepson, one's biological, and then I've got an 18-year-old daughter. And
have you cold-bleed them?
Yes. I've got one boy who's straight entrepreneur. He's like a 2 to 8 7. So he loves, he's the kid that builds
pioneer
stuff. Big time pioneer. Yes. And he's has a lot of failures, but a lot of successes too.
Keep him in the mountains, man. Just have him out in the Wasatch Mountains building stuff. He'll be great.
I don't have to ask him. We can't find him half the time.
He's out in a tree.
And then my other son is more of he's more methodical. He's the fact finder, follow through. He's like
engineer.
He's like he's a 7, 6, 4, and then he's like a 5 on the implement.
Wow. 7, 6, 4. Wow.
Yeah, and so he's interesting thing about him is he's always been like he draws very, very perfectly. He's very thoughtful, and so both of my sons together, they make a pretty dynamic team when they start working on things. Because my pioneer son, he can burn down a forest pretty quick.
He could do that. Yeah, he could.
Yeah, he almost has a few times.
I believe that. Yeah, he could. And then your daughter?
My daughter is more of she's when we ran her Colby profile, her fact finder is like a 6. She's kind of a unicorn, you know. She's a mediator, so she's like a 6'5" 4.
Right down the middle.
Yeah.
Hire her to do something. Yeah, that's what Dan always says. Good employee.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and well, she actually has worked for me over the years. So.
Of course, that's a good hire. So my 9-year-old, for those who don't know, you can Colby your kids Dynamite, DYNAMYND. And I am not Colby certified, but I know more about Colby than people that are Colby certified. Because that's where I use my 8 fact finders to learn as much about how people take action. So my 9-year-old is he's a 2296. This is the second time he's taking it. He had been a 3296, so his fact finding went down 229s. And then the 8-year-old who was a 4294, very close to you, he is now a 3297. So they can go. They'll send my 2 sons out with your pioneer son, and they'll go build. God knows what. Actually, I don't want to know what they're going to do. We'll send them out in the. They probably would burn down the. It's not funny. That's
my
not.
boys about 5 years ago built a rope tow, like and a zip line with a rope. And that zip line, they're like, okay, you got to get on this, Dad. And so I'm like, all right, let me jump on there. And I get on, and midway through, the whole thing snaps. I broke a vertebrae.
And they'd be like, oh, let's just build that again and have you go down there again without.
Oh, they did, yeah, but I didn't go the second time. I'm like, no, that's not. But
you had just enough fact find to realize that was. So again, this is a joke, but it's not a joke. What I tell my kids is silly is okay, stupid is not. Like silly fine, stupid is not. And then I'm like, misdemeanor kind of okay, felony not okay. That is because you just don't. I mean, and then people are like, oh, aren't you afraid? I just had a conversation earlier this morning with an entrepreneur. He's like, aren't you afraid of what they'll be like when they're older? I'm like, no. I mean, the greatest part about being an entrepreneur is that like you can see your kids, again, put your loved ones first. You can see your kids, and then they can learn this knowledge, and then they can do whatever they want with it. And then at least they know from day one, as opposed to like, your grandpa not sharing his stories until, right before he, right in his later years. They get the knowledge right away, which that's the greatest gift by far entrepreneurship offers. There's not even a close second to that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, holy smokes, this has been exciting, Justin. We're kind of coming up to the end, and so couple rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Number one, journalism. How has that translated your 20-year career as a journalist? How does that translate to your professional career now? I know you, I think it was 2017, April 10th is your birthday, and then you launched your business 2017, shortly after I can't remember what birthday it was, but it was
40th.
40. Okay, 40th birthday. So how's that translated over?
It's a great question. So I would describe myself as an entrepreneur who happens to be a journalist. This is a rapid fire question, but I don't know if it can be a rapid fire answer. I'll try. So I never understood negative news. If it bleeds, it leads. Political stuff, I don't understand any of that. And journalists who are journalists, they never understood what I was writing about, and I never understood what they were complaining about. I never understood. I just don't understand. And so as a journalist or an entrepreneur who happens to be a journalist, wrote about cool people changing the world. And as an entrepreneur, writing about and connecting cool people changing the world. So there's been absolutely zero difference in the actual stories and people that have been written about since starting this.
Man, love it. Next question. Number one health hack. What do you love to do for your health on a daily basis that you feel moves the needle for you more than anything else?
Number one, wow, there's so many. My whole life is good habits and good patterns and good habits. That's like my whole life. If it's only one, I run 6 days a week, no matter the weather conditions, between 3 and 5 miles. Have done that for, oh man, geez, 15, 20 years. So
Oh,
we live in
wow.
Chicago, cold, hot, rainy, wind, whatever. So
Yeah.
run outside. And
Deep
then,
snow.
I will shows like this. I listen to shows like this while I run. So it's feeding the mind,
Love it.
every organ, legs. And then, so my sons, we all run 5Ks together, just to dovetail onto that. The 9-year-old, 2296, he's already done a 21:10 5K, which is it's world class.
That's fast.
No, that's, yeah, he's a complete
Yeah.
maniac. Yeah, that's
I
insane.
remember when I got sub 20, I was like, I think I can hang up my shoes now. I was so
Well, are
excited.
you still doing sub 20s?
I don't know. I haven't ran one in quite a
Hmm.
while, but I think I could get there. I love running myself.
Oh, of course.
Have you ever done chi running or looked into that or read? I'm sure you've read Born to Run.
Oh God, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's such a good book.
With
But
the sandals, is that what you mean?
chi running is no, it's like a meditative form of combining tai chi into running. So
Oh, that's
Danny
interesting.
Dreyer, but look into that anyway. That's another conversation.
Running. Okay.
But yeah, you'll love it. If you love the book Born to Run, then Danny Dreyer teaches you how to put it into action. Not necessarily the Born to Run philosophy, but just running in a meditative state, which it sounds
Okay.
like you do. If you're,
Well,
because
that's what it feels like I'm doing. That's what it feels like every time I run. I'm in a meditative state, but that
yeah,
will be helpful. Thank you.
I love that. And then the final question is, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, and who would you like to get in touch with you?
Okay, sure. Thank you. LinkedIn's always good. Justin Breen on LinkedIn. And then I hear it's the same problem. So you create solution problem. So all I hear is we're tired of being the best secret. We want to be in more news, media, right connections to create more validity and credibility. So, and then has to be a visionary, has to live in abundance, has to look at things as investments, not costs. So here we're tired of being the best secret. That's literally all I hear every day.
Man, love it. Awesome. Well, Justin, thanks so much for being on the show. Can't wait for many more conversations with you. And for everyone who's with us, really appreciate you. Don't forget to share this with your friends, family, loved ones, especially any entrepreneur who's out there that's, maybe could use a little bit of wisdom and greater connectivity. I think this would be awesome to share with them. So appreciate you guys. Justin, we'll talk very soon. Thank you.
This was excellent. Thank you so much.
You got it. Bye-bye.